Well, I would very much like to be with you in person, but let me indicate my great excitement about the topic you will be addressing and how much I would like to be with you this morning. But I hope this is a good way to use not the internet, but similar kinds of modern equipment to be able to bridge the international gap between us. Several of us who have studied the resource commons have also been interested in the internet. Charles Schweik, who is one of my former doctoral students, has just finished a major book on the internet, and one of the leading scholars who was in governance for a long time, Douglas Van Houweling, was one of my very first PhDs, so I have a deep interest. It is indeed a commons, but different than a fishery or a forest. But what we are trying to make clear to people is that simply because something is a commons doesn't mean it always is the same. And we have a large number of scholars who want to find one or two optimal ways of organizing everything. And there aren't any. The crucial problem with the network, as I see it, is how to sort out the real from the artificial. As a faculty member, we have something called a junk mail program. And so after I have seen something from coming in from the internet, and it looks like junk mail, I can then scribe that, and from then on I won't see it. Howsoever, it is now the case that frequently there will be 50 or 60 items in junk mail, and you have to go over them briefly because sometimes for some crazy reason a colleague sends you a useful piece of information and they put something in the message content and it kicks it over. But short of that, what you're able to do is to, one, stay in contact with colleagues about current research. So I'm writing papers with Harini Nagendra regularly, and she's in India and I'm in Indiana. And some people say, how in the world do you do this? Well, we have two ways. One, we are sending drafts back and forth and using the internet extensively. And two, we have a regular meeting. Now, if she weren't in Bangalore, we would be using Skype and the internet. It turns out that in Bangalore, so many people use the internet because it is highly electronically oriented. Skype isn't reliable. And you can have the middle of a conversation and all of a sudden, so we use a phone. But those are getting cheap enough that you can use phone calls. And so as someone who does, well, I write with Harini, Marco Jansen, who is teaching in Arizona, and I have regular papers that we've written together. We wrote a book with Amy Poteet, who's up in Canada, and if there hadn't been for the internet, we never would have completed a full book. I mean, a full book. We had some meetings face-to-face, but most of it was internet. So I am a great respecter of it as a way of enabling the equivalent of parallel or face-to-face, not hierarchical, but equivalent relationships to really develop and extend. There are also uses of it that are quite interesting and potentially productive, but can merge. And those are protest movements where it becomes a way of notifying people that X is a problem and it's about to occur and let's march on it. So a very large number of protests in the last 20 years, and particularly the last 10 years, have been organized with the use of the internet. There are times, however, that someone can hear about a network list and then put a notice on that list and it isn't right. And so it is one of those things that you have to be careful and not let yourself get all excited because you've heard X. You have to check on it. But that's the case with written. The only big difference is how many people have the information at the same time. But we've always had the problem of people writing articles or things of this sort that were not exactly right on. So the internet doesn't increase the likelihood of people trying to stir up trouble, but it does mean that people have to be alert that not everything on the internet is absolutely fair and square. I don't believe that there is anything in the world that's all good or all bad. And so it can lead to the things like London, where somebody thinks that, aha, this would be a good way of getting everybody out for what is not as a protest movement that does not have the kind of foundation that some others do. So you have protest movements that are internet driven, that are good and important and would never have occurred otherwise, and others that are lousy. But do you know of, the telephone, is it all good? Printed volumes, is it all good? Movies, is it all good? Tell me a media that has had nothing but positive. I don't know one. It also means that because we communicate so much more, that our load in communication is much higher. And as someone who sometimes gets 80 or 90 a day, I do find it, I'm now learning how to go through the incoming mail rapidly and trying to deal with it rapidly, because if I let it mount up, I've got 200, 300 messages, then I can't sort it. So I do spend a fair amount of time on the internet, and as a result, I've learned a lot. I've gotten a lot more written, but at times I might say a swear word or two about it, and just because it is a bit of a load. But I'm sure that you are all going to sort this out and come up with some exciting papers and some exciting developments, and I just wish I could be with you.